packets.
How are you?
Procedures, we've had several open-ended discussions. We'll finish them up. They are there. You might want to move it to leave it after we print all the separate headers and change the Well, Victoria's spreading out here.
Because I spread out before she sat down.
What are you doing on this side?
I came over to visit with you.
You're getting crazy, aren't you?
I know, just.
This is the good guys.
Oh.
Just joking.
We've been saying it for years. I don't know where you. Oh, you've been on the other side. Oh.
On the dark side.
Uh-huh. Hi. Come in. How are you? Yes, we do.
Yeah, it's a robust meeting today. Wade's here. They didn't let me have that.
Me neither. I think they were afraid you and I would have thrown it at somebody. Yeah, I am feeling a little left out.
Yeah, I'm wondering where that came from.
Well, that's a little scary.
Okay, thank you. What's that?
Because there's an amendment. Oh, because the other one's just information. This is a robust meeting today.
Yeah.
I should have started the new year.
Good afternoon, everyone. I like to bang the gavel because I've never done this before. Call this meeting to order. The January meeting of the Transportation Advisory Committee meeting. I just wanted to say Happy New Year to everybody and thanks for coming. And we do have a quorum. And let's just start by doing introductions.
Victoria Chavez, El Paso County.
Jennifer Irvin, El Paso County.
Robert Nussfitch, Town of Palmer Lake.
Tim Roberts, City of Colorado Springs.
Larry Manning, Town of Monument.
Wade Burkholder, City Managing Springs. Aaron Musto, Federal Highway. Michael Snow, CDOT, Transportation Developments.
Wendy Pettit, CDOT Region 2.
Kim Grader, PPACG.
Randy Williams, City of Fountain.
Mike Kozak, China Mountain Air Force Station.
Aaron Hausmeyer, Shreveport Air Force Base.
Deborah Baumgartner, Mustafa.
And Brian Vituli, City of Colorado Springs Mountain Metro Transit. Thank you all. Before I ask for agenda, and staff, please introduce yourself.
FDA Region 8, Larry Squires.
Jennifer Valentine, PPACG. Jenny Lyons, PPACG. Jessica McClellan, PPACG.
Kevin Reyes, PPACG.
And Larry, you're welcome to sit at the table. All right. I like to sit in the background too.
That's why we need a chair.
Yeah. Agenda approval. I would just like to ask somebody to make a motion. A later action item was added, TIP Amendment 6, which is on our agenda for item 13. since that's an action item, I would like to see that go up somewhere in the top of the agenda so it doesn't get held up by our lengthy discussion items. So I'd entertain a motion.
I move to move item 13 up to just before the UPWP amendment number 2.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay, thank you. Public comments. Are there any public comments from PAC members or the audience? All right, seeing none. I would just like to briefly share a few housekeeping items. I know, we have several new TAC members and several members that aren't with us anymore. And I know that I received these when I became a member of the TAC. We have the bylaws and we have a procedures and general information for committee meetings at the PPACG. So they're just kind of some guiding documents that I think if you all don't have them, I'd like to ask staff to perhaps share those with everybody. And members, if you get a chance to read them, those could be very helpful. It could help our meetings move along smoothly like they've been going. And procedures and all of that, it's just a good idea to stay on top of. And I also wanted to mention, if staff could also update the TAC distribution list, because I think there are several old members that are still on there, and I'm not really sure the new members like Daniel from Woodland Park are getting the correspondence. Brandy, I don't know if you're getting everything. Okay. Okay, so if we can just update the TAC email distribution list and whatever other procedures you do to keep the TAC committee housekeeping up to order, that'd be great. All right, thank you. So no other public comments?
I'd just like to add to that, I think it might be good to make sure that if we have any vacancies, to make sure that maybe we reach out to all those communities and make sure that we give them the opportunity to provide representation. Just another suggestion to staff.
We'll review all that. Send something out to everybody.
Thank you.
So if you don't.
Okay. And we have two sets of minutes to approve. Item number 4 is approval of the November 17th, 2016 minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look those over?
I have one comment. Chair is spelled wrong after your name.
Any other comments? Someone like to motion with that modification?
I'll move approval with that modification.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
See, listen here.
Thank you. So I'm also going to try to help staff with the motions and the seconds. And I wasn't following that too. Brandy, you made the motion and Jennifer made the second. Okay, thank you. Item number 5, approval of the December 15th, 2016 meeting minutes.
That was very timely. Just on December, we're missing a lot of who made what motions and seconds, so that was my only comment on those, is there were motions that were made, but there's no names associated with them.
We'll have to do a better job of that now that we have so many new staff members. We'll try and help you out with that.
I was reading and it was, which one was it? It said there was a second made. I'm 90% sure I was that second.
Which item was that, Tim?
I'm trying to find
Item
it.
6.
I'm on the wrong page. Yeah, item 6 was the one that I'm pretty sure I was the second on that.
Just a quick comment from back here. I don't know if everybody uses the microphones, but it's very difficult to hear both in person and it's impossible to hear on the video. So please help us out if you really make an effort to use the microphone.
Okay.
Just check.
Okay, I entertain a motion to approve the December 15th, 2016 meeting minutes.
I'll move approval with the addition of Tim to item 6.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. All right, thank you. So we have Victoria and Tim for that one. All right, item number 6, Board of Directors report from the January board meeting.
Okay, transportation related, first thing they did was to announce that Ron Downey's contract is executive director and will be terminated effective February 10th
Okay.
without cause. We will start a nationwide search. Craig Casper, I'm sure you all know, was put on administrative leave and is still in that situation. Turning the decision on for Craig over to the acting executive director, Greg Sockenberg. No determination at all yet. Transportation tip amendment number 5 was approved as a consent item.
Kenan, who is acting as our transportation director in the interim?
But that didn't need-
Congratulations.
Somebody told me that I gotta.
Congratulations or sorry,
Thank you.
either one.
For the action item, the 2050 long-range transportation goals. We had I don't want to get into the agenda items, so let's just say it's on the agenda later for today. It's come back to the committees and staff. CDOT gave a monthly update on the road usage pilot program. I don't know if all of you are aware of that. You can sign up or have been able to sign up, and there's 3 different levels where you can plug a GPS unit into your car, and it will track how fast you go, how much gas you're using, where you go, how many miles you're driving, and it then transmits this up and sends you a mock bill that, I don't know the pricing, but it's a higher price than what you pay at the gas pump. Kind of program in the states is going through. So we're paying how many cents a gallon of gas here. Craig was one of the people doing it, Andy Pico, our chair, is another person. Yeah, I don't know about Armstein. But they get a monthly or periodic printout of the output from this unit. And it says, at such and such a usage rate, you would pay this much. And it is comes out higher than just buying gas at 19 or 21 cents a gallon, whatever we're paying for state tax. The logic is to find out, I guess, how acceptable it is to use. Would it raise additional money for transportation in the state? So that's a pilot program that's ongoing. I think it's going to finish up in April. I guess there'll be some information put out on that. At some point. I think that was it. I had some other comments that bring in and get down to priority projects.
All right, thank you. Okay, now we'll take item number 13, the fiscal year 2017 to 2022 TIP Amendment 6. Kevin?
Good afternoon, everyone. Kevin Reyes, Transportation Planner here with PPACG. So we received a TIP amendment from Mountain Metro Transit. They are requesting to put the federal and local funds received from FTA in the TIP. These include 5307 and 5339 funds. And this was the agenda item that we added at the last minute, so I'll quickly find it here. So these are the amounts that Mountain Metro Transit has requested to put into the TIP. And I don't know if Brian wants to talk any more about this amendment.
No, I just wanted to say I apologize for this going into the packet late, but when I made the request last week to staff, I thought it could be added as an administrative change, and it wasn't, and it was a little bit too late after the packet went out, so I just wanted to thank staff for being able to get this on in the meantime. But it's basically just filling in the blanks where we had for all of our FTA funding programs and just populating them with actual dollar figures. So it's what we use for our 5307 for operations, maintenance, planning, and capital projects, and 5339 for fixed route vehicle purchases. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Move approval. Second. Jennifer and Victoria.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Victoria and Jennifer, right?
Jennifer and then Victoria.
Okay, item number 7, the Unified Planning Work Program, Amendment number 2. Ken?
Last month at TAC, this item came before you, and it was everybody's understanding that the UPWP amendment, well, there was also a TIP amendment, if you remember, to move some Metro dollars that were available in 2017 and to move them for data gathering, road roughness index, to meet some of our data gathering requirements. And because it's now a planning type project, it has to be amended into the UPWP. And last month it was the understanding that the UPWP would have to go out for a 30-day public comment period. And so your recommendation to the board was to release it for public comment. Between your meeting and the board meeting, it was clarified that a public comment period was not required. At the same time, it was identified that there were some reconciliation funds from 2015 that needed to be added to the UPWP that you had not seen and were not aware of. They actually should have been caught back in August when we did amendment number 1, but they were completely overlooked, so they needed to be added. So because we suddenly had a month that we didn't have to go to the public, decided to bring it back through the committees so you could see the additional funds, as well as the STP Metro that's going to be added into the data gathering effort. Beth, if you could slide down to those 2 pages. There is a few administrative changes here, and the first thing that will pop up in yellow, they just updated some of our self-certification dates of no lobbying, no drugs, no discrimination, the Title VI and the EJ plan that were approved by the board in November, so took the opportunity to update those, but it's just a change of the dates there. What you see in yellow is what was added or changed. And a few pages down, there's the reference to the funding from the STP Metro funds to be added, the $234,190 to be added for data gathering.
regional pavement condition. And about the next 2 pages down, there's the table that shows those numbers added in. And the first row that you see there, row 8, is where the reconciliation funds that CDOT identified to us, that 25,000 local match requirement. So that's what you were unaware of that you'd not seen before. The other is the adding into the budget and the expected expenditures for the year for the STP Metro Consolidated Block Group funds that are being added. And then those changes get carried through the rest of the document in the work element. Those were the other changes and highlights. So making sure that everything matches the dollar amounts there in that table. So essentially, there's 2 items for the amendment, adding the reconciliation funds and the STP Metro funds that the board did approve in the TIP amendment, but because of the other changes, we'll take it back to the board. And I'll try it and see if it goes through as a consent item on the board, but we'll see what happens.
Are there any comments or questions? Jennifer.
And I guess I was going to get into this later, but it made me think about it now. Knowing that the I-25 GAP project is moving forward and it's being accelerated through the NEPA process, and there's probably a need at some point here in the future to start working on a plan amendment, because a portion of that is in PPACG. Is that something you need to change in the UPWP as well?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, your UPWP always accounts for general plan adoption and ongoing maintenance and necessary amendments. So it's sort of one of those blanket items. I think if you foresaw a really major amendment that would be a notable change in like consultant costs or something like that, then you might consider actually amending, but otherwise it's covered. Jennifer, if that was all you were going to say, I was just going to speak a little bit more about why there's so much to this amendment. One of the challenges was that the proposal, or I guess what's already kind of in motion, is that this data gathering project is going to kick off in March, which means you have to have contractually everything set up for CPG and reimbursement to be available. It has to be done before you even do any of the work, and that was not going to be possible. What I mean is it was not going to be possible to get the UPWP amended, accepted by FHWA, and then execute a new STP Metro planning contract by March 1. It wouldn't happen. So what is actually taking place in your UPWP amendment makes it possible that the existing CPG contract now covers the scope of that entire data gathering project, so that you can seek reimbursement for it, and it gives us time to properly execute the STP Metro planning contract. And the STP Metro planning contract will also have the same scope of work as the entire planning program that you have under CPG. So you'll be invoicing, and this may be more than you need to know, but there's just a lot to this amendment that might confuse if you didn't know. So what will take place is all that planning, all that data gathering can be, the work and so forth, and the in-kind plan can be attributed to it and be billed to CPG. Then when STP Metro planning is, that contract is executed, then all of Pikes Peak's planning activities and expenses can be billed to STP Metro. And so you'll basically draw that down, and then when it's done, you'll go back to drawing down CPG funds. And hence the reason you see in your budget, you see the entire, sum total of the whole 500,000 project that's actually carried out by Colorado Springs, carried out by PPRTA by way of Colorado Springs. That has to be included because you're counting that against as an in-kind local match towards the STP Metro.
So what I'm learning is that everything is interrelated, and it's exactly what you were asking, Jennifer. There could be ramifications that would certainly require us to look at the plan and consider that as we move along.
Sure, I just want to make sure that if you need to change that now or kind of anticipate that, that you are able to do that.
And I guess we always do a mid-year amendment too, right? In between adoption of the new UPWP. So it could always be added then, right? If needed.
Well, the city has a contract that's starting in March, and so that's what Michael's referring to. We're trying to piggyback onto that contract and expand the scope of the area that they're doing for the roughness, pavement roughness or pavement condition, and to stay on schedule and not delay that. We've got to get our ducks in a row first.
Any other comments or questions?
So what is the boundaries of that pavement condition?
It's the city limits, of the City of Colorado Springs city limits.
Okay, so it's just for you guys?
Ken, isn't it
There
a
was
combination?
Starting one internally, Brandy, if you might want to
Talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we already have a contract with Cartograph, and this is expanded service that they now offer. So it's just kind of an expansion of our existing program.
And then, Ken, your Pikes Peak is tacking on to that project all those areas outside of city boundary, correct?
Right. So this will cover.
Up to the MPO area.
Basically, the entire planning area.
PPACG
right?
will be, yes.
But not all of the roads, only a portion of those.
The collector and above, or
Yeah. Okay,
yeah.
so we're in there, kind of.
So collector and above, yes.
Okay, but you guys are doing all your roads.
We're doing all of our roads.
PACG is just doing collector and above.
Right.
We're going to do all of ours, too.
Okay.
So between everybody, we should have
Something.
most everything covered.
Okay, would anyone like to make a motion for item number 7, UPWP amendment number 2?
I'll move to approve with the, just move to approve.
For a second?
Second. Got one?
So that-
Bob seconded. So Tim made the motion, Bob seconded. All right, thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? All right, thank you. All right, item number 8, long-range transportation plan goals. Jessica.
Okay, thank you very much, TAC members. You guys may remember this from your last TAC meeting. We had requested the permission to release the 2040 goals as part of a survey for public comment. We got a lot of comments from that at the CAC and at the board meeting that they were concerned about some of the ways that that had been perceived and presented. So what we did is we proposed to release a survey that includes both open-ended questions and the goals from the 2040 language for public review and comment as part of an effort to gauge public priorities. The wording of the goals was modified from the language that was approved by the board, but only in a way to make them understandable by the general public. And these survey responses will be used to help PPACG staff and advisory committees develop a current relevant set of goals for the 2050 plan. I'm going to show you guys that if I can click the links. So what this survey looks like, you all should have gotten it in your things. Packets. Packets is the right word. It gives a quick explanation of what we do. PPACG works to provide the region's future transportation needs, developing a long-range transportation plan. Thank you for taking the time to complete the survey, share it, and encourage others. Part of that is specifically directed at all of you. As our TAC members, we really do need your help getting it out to the public and getting it out. So if you are not currently Facebook friends with PPACG, if you have not liked and followed us, if you have not done the Twitter, you really should do that so you can help us share these out and help support us.
Can you email us a link?
Absolutely. So the survey link, once it is submitted by the board, will go out in an email to everybody on our committees. So the first two questions are our very open-ended ones. We wanted to make sure that we weren't directing people in any direction. And it says, what do you want to see happen with transportation in our region in the next 30-plus years? And then we know technology is changing our world, including roads, bike and transit options. What do you think we need to be making sure we consider for 2050? So those two questions are really designed to help us pull out just the blanks of people who are regular citizens when they're looking at being asked about the future of transportation. We go into the second part of the survey, which is as part of the previous long-range plan, the 2040 plan, we identified 13 transportation goals for the Pikes Peak region. The goals are listed alphabetically and are not prioritized anyway. Please look through the next three questions and tell us which goals we need to keep and what else we may need to add. Feel free to add comments, suggestions, new goals, or suggest alternative language for any of the goals in sections 6 and 7. So it then goes through and asks all of those 14 goals, and it asks, should we remove them? Should we keep them and make them a low priority, or should we keep them and make them a high priority? That way, when we are looking at the results of this, we can all come through and see people really think this is valuable. You know, we got a whole lot of remove and keep low. We got all of these are high priorities, so that when we are presenting the survey results to you as the TAC, you can say, I understand what they're wanting. At the end of those questions, before you go to the next page, it asks, share any new goals you'd like to see added for the 2050 plan, or suggest any modified language. And part of that is we heard some feedback that people felt like some of the goals were combining things that shouldn't be combined. But because we did not want to change the substance of the goals that had already been approved in 2014, we instead decided to ask this way. Change the language if you need us to, but tell us what you're thinking. And then after considering the 2040 goals, what would you like to see for the regional long-term transportation goals going forward? What are we missing or what needs to be updated? I talk really fast. Let's see. So
sorry.
No, it's all right.
Certainly, options are remove, high priority or low priority.
Yes.
There's no like medium priority.
No.
Is this only on Facebook or is it on the website?
It'll be through Constant Contact. It'll be through our website. One of the last page of the survey asks just for your email address, what city you live in, and postal code and your name. The reason for that is we'd like to be able to follow up with people as we can, and so that we can track, you know, who's reaching out from Woodland Park, who's coming from El Paso County, Colorado Springs, Fountain. That way we're really working on getting that in a clear and coherent manner. And then after you fill that out, it asks, do you want to keep getting information? It tells you how to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or sign up for email notifications, which will give you the option of, I just want transportation information, and how to get and stay involved. Tim?
But that high or low, is that going into like a weighting
No.
down the road, or this is just, okay.
The goal really thought is,
Yeah, what's the goal of that part?
the goal of that part is just to give people a chance to, instead of saying keep or remove, to give them a middle ground, which is keep and low priority. We know we're likely to get a lot of those responses. People like giving middle ground responses, so it's not going to be the most valuable to have that option, but it will serve on the things that people are not comfortable removing but don't think are a high priority, which I think will benefit us. Okay. Our real goal is to give the opportunity for some high-level vision and new technology aspects, encouraging those, you know, new trends, be open-ended, but also encourage continuity within the plan so that we're not, you know, suddenly jumping track and trying to go in a completely different direction. Instead, that we are steering us on a path that will continue to let us make progress. Step 1 is this survey, and then step 2 would be a work session with the TAC and the CAC and the board and community partners to go over the survey results and look at what's the language, where did we confuse people, what did they say. You know, if we get 1,000 responses that all say, light fire to our cars because we want to ride the bus, Brian will do a happy dance, and life will be better for some people. But if we get 1,000 responses that say, I'm never going to ride the bus, He needs to know that so he can plan. And that's why the next step to this is take this information and bring it back to all of you in a pretty in-depth work session to go over it and really consider what each of those responses means.
So we'll, do a really good job of informing all of us as we start to develop these and see what the public is saying,
And that really is the plan. We'd really like to keep it running for 4 to 6 weeks, and our goal is to have at least 1,000 responses. Traditionally, in the past, we've ranged from 5 to about 100, which is why you'll see me standing up here and reminding you all that I really do want your help pushing them really hard in your communities, because I do think that we need a better response rate for something like this if it's going to represent us properly.
Jessica, I just had one other question. So last month, we as a committee recommended releasing this for public comment, and I believe the CAC did also, but there was some opposition to that. I think there were 4 members or so who opposed that. Can you tell me where they were?
And then to tack on, and then why the board sent it back to us.
So a lot of the people in our CAC were really hung up on the 2014 language. They were very concerned that we were pigeonholing citizens into just going with those options, and that we weren't leaving the opportunity for the innovative technologies that are influencing the community now. Several of those CAC members made a point to talk with Vice Chair Gabler and really wanted to be like, hey, we don't feel like you've listened well enough, which we're trying really hard to make sure they know, which is why I just ran through the entire survey with all of you, because I want everybody to know what the survey asks and see that we are taking all of that feedback very seriously. We want to make sure we're not pigeonholing people into 2040, but that we're also not completely jumping track and losing all continuity in the plan. Yeah.
And so that's the major change from what we saw last month, is instead of putting the 13 goals from the last plan up front, you're hiding them a little bit and letting people be creative and come up with ideas.
We changed the survey language a little bit per responses from the CAC, some of the TAC feedback that we had heard, and from the board workshop feedback, because we want to make sure that this is the best survey we can do.
Right. Okay.
Right, I'll just add a comment. We have a workshop with board members for anybody that shows up, before the board meeting, and there were a couple of board members, and this item was discussed with them, and we went over. Jessica presented changes to the survey that had been made because of comments at CAC, but it was after the board mail-out. She also then, based on what those board members said, made a bunch more changes, and I thought really captured, as she described, what they were after. Unfortunately, that's all after the mail-out, and so the revisions were handed out at the board meeting. She described them. One board member in particular, who had some questions, after the description said, "This is great, but since the committees haven't seen it, I'd like to see it go back to them." And so that's what she made the formal recommendation, that it come back to the committees so that you could see how it's been revised based on the comments.
Tim.
Would staff, and I know your time's tight, and you're low staff right now, but would you guys, we have several transportation committees, would you want to present to those committees this and kind of help sell that, or?
And Jennifer has been volunteering to do that and started already.
Yesterday presented at the county's HAC meeting, and I would be more than happy to come to CTAB or ATAC or any of the other similar meetings that you think would be useful. You just have to invite me.
Okay, we'll be inviting you.
All right.
Or you're invited.
Yeah, that would help with getting it out into the community.
Yes.
That'd be great.
Just so that everybody knows, HAC is Highway Advisory Committee meeting.
Well, thank you for, listening to all those 3 different voices, and both committees and the board, and this is good. And I know I'm not alone when I say, for the TAC members, we would love to see a more condensed set of goals. something that still meets the requirements, but something that makes our job easier when we're writing job or project applications, and staff's job easier when they're evaluating them all. So hopefully this will get there, but great job.
I'm going to piggyback because I can't help it. My issue is not with your survey. My issue is with keeping our same 13 goals that we have had for many, many years now. I think they've pretty much remained the same in probably the last 8 years that I've been here. I would really love to see less goals. I took a look at a variety of plans from other MPOs and other, the state plan. Most of them have 4 to 5 goals on them. Pueblo, North Front Range, the statewide plan, so there's no need for us to have 13 goals. So I'm going to let the survey go out, but I really hope that we can figure out a way to get to 4 concise, simple goals that don't all intermix and overlap.
And
I know you've never heard me say this before.
And I will add that one of the things that's really exciting about stage 2 of this, doing that work session, is finding the places where it's not a goal. It's a measurement. It's a performance measure of a goal. And that's something that I think we'll be able to see more obvious after the survey results come in.
I think staff would certainly support you in that, Victoria. And if you remember our effort for the 2040 plan, we didn't get the board to approve removing 1 goal. Or maybe it was 2. So
It's a new day.
maybe we can do another 2.
Yep.
All right, any other comments? I do have one comment, I guess either for Larry or Aaron. Generally the new long-range plans are, 25 years out or so, and we seem to have jumped from 2040 to 2050. So that's, we're looking 30 years out by the time this is done. Is that a new requirement, or are we following along with Michael CDOT's next long-range plan? Are they doing a 2050? I guess, why is it not 2045, I guess is my question.
Well, the regulations have a 20-year horizon. So you can go anywhere beyond that, but you cannot go under 20 years. That's all I have to say.
Okay. So was this just a PPACG's effort? Sorry, Larry, go ahead.
It's ditto.
Okay. All right.
And CDOT intends to do a 2045 plan
Okay.
for the next statewide. So, I recall Craig talking about why this went this direction. I don't recall exactly
I don't recall either.
where it came from, what the reasoning was. It seemed sensible when I heard it. Just don't remember it.
That's a good question. I didn't
Yeah,
think about
yeah.
that.
What's that?
Funding related?
Well, I'm not going to hold the vote up just because of, 5 years, but.
Can I make a comment? The only thing I could add is that the state demographer does predict out to 2050, so it's feasible. I think there was a choice to be made, and perhaps Craig made the choice to go further.
Well, and crazy thought comment, does it give us more funding within the fiscally constrained plan so we can have more projects on our potential slate of projects because we're going another 5 years out?
As long as it's fiscally constrained.
It'd be,
And I'm seeing Wendy shake her head no, though, so.
it doesn't change the annual, I would imagine.
Fiscal constraint is fiscal constraint. So even though you're in that last 5 years out, it's still in the unconstrained portion. And you would be extrapolating because we won't be estimating out that far.
So it's not going to help us get more projects in the fiscally constrained plan. No, bummer. That would be a good reason, if that were the case.
Anything else? We have a motion to recommend that this be released for public comment, please. Anybody?
Huh?
You're on me.
Oh, I'll move that this be released for public comment.
I'll second that.
Okay, all right. Larry and Tim, motion and second. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? All right, thanks, Jessica. All right, item number 9, transportation web pages. Jessica?
So this is going to be me, and I'm going to bring Jenny Lines, our web and publications coordinator, up. PPACG staff has been in the process of developing a new PPACG website to come out in 2017. It's necessary to address some of the outdated programming that we have, and is designed to increase engagement opportunities and accessibility for citizens. Our goal is to improve the visual design and content structuring, make sure that we're within ADA compliance, make sure that our information is accessible, increase engagement and awareness with programs, requesting feedback. All of these surveys, all of the mapping ideas we've got, we want to make sure we're doing it. Make more information available with a reduced number of clicks. We want you to be able to go to our website and actually use it. And several of us who have not been within PPACG for long have suffered through the cursing that is what happens when you try to use the website. And to create a culture of transparency online. We have been making a shift away from Joomla, partially because it's become an outdated language and very few people continue to use it. So if Jenny got hit by a bus, we would be in big trouble, and we don't like that idea. And so we're seeking your feedback and suggestions on these transportation-related web pages. So here is our proposed new home site. I'm going to scroll it down a little slow, but not too slow. It's got a list of all of our programs, the PPACG mission, some of the basic keynote information.
Is the survey on this?
It is not yet, because this is not live yet, so it does me no good to put anything on here yet. This is all just for you guys. News and upcoming events. Committee information. So instead of having to click all the way through, people will be able to say, Transportation Committee. Oh, here's your next meeting. Here's the video of your last meeting, and here's your meeting materials. These are things we think are really helpful.
Is a tip right there also? The current tip?
It is not right now. You'll see on the next page when we actually go to the transportation page. I'm still on the home page. It'll click you to our yellow book, our annual reports, how to get involved, and quotes from citizens who have commented on things as we go through. Then, within our programs page, we give a quick description. Here's what we are. So if you click programs instead of going straight to transportation, you get the option. But if you click transportation, this is what everyone will see. I'm going to bring Jenny up. She's got some specific questions for all of you for discussion.
So with current staff for the transportation department. Introduce yourself. Oh, yes, sorry. I am Jenny Lines. I'm the new web and publications coordinator for PPACG. And I'm excited to meet all of you. I've been sitting in the background kind of watching, so I've had a very good involvement. Currently, I've been working with our transportation staff at PPACG to figure out what are, moving forward, what we need to do to get more engagement from our community. And what I've come up with is kind of splicing out what our goals and our plans are in the 2040 plan and moving forward. So this is where these buttons come from. So if you guys would just take a quick look and go through these with me, we can see if there's anything that I've missed or that we might want to add. This is where the tip comes in as well.
I see that, yeah.
Any questions on this part or discussion?
Chris, Jenny, just a question. I know before the many website crashes of the last year or two,
Yes.
there was a lot of archive material on there,
Correct.
old tips and all of that. Will that be part of this too? Okay.
Yes, and I will actually go ahead and scroll down to that, actually. The plan is to have an archive that's searchable by keywords as well as categories and that kind of thing, which will be directly on all of our program pages. So we'll have an actual document library on all of our program pages that will be searchable, and that includes all the current archive material from our current website, which I'm in the process. There is a lot. I will be moving over. Also notice another big thing that I'm going to be trying to do is reach out to our actual member entities and get resources from them, because I don't know, I just moved here, but I do not know actually what you guys, what your needs are in your community. And I would like to link those back to us. So if somebody does come upon our website, they can simply look on our resource page and find what they're looking for their community even. And I will be reaching out to you guys individually. So, any questions about that? So mainly my effort is to get information to you in a better fashion, because I don't know how many of you actually have used our website to find like meeting materials, but it's it's kind of a pain. So I would like to propose, something where literally you click on this button and it will take you directly to your meeting materials. So you have one click instead of 5.
Mm-hmm.
So
That would be helpful.
I love the searchable aspect of it.
yes.
I can't tell you the number of times I've gone through, 6 different meetings going, which agenda was that on?
Correct.
And having to click through, so I think that's terrific. And in fact, just today I was on the website and I was trying to find the note policy. Couldn't find it anywhere. Still don't have the note policy. So having those policy documents, the bylaws, our procedures, those kinds of things on there in a searchable way,
Yeah.
awesome.
And those are actually, we just discussed that when you guys brought that up. The bylaws of all of our current committees are not on our committee pages. So going ahead and pulling those and putting them in a very prominent area, and any kind of vacancies also that might be available is very important for this whole organization to actually work. So, any other discussion?
Jenny, have you,
Yes.
I think this has been done or experimented with, at least with the PPRTA, but is there a way, or would you consider doing some type of project mapping exercise, that shows projects throughout the region that have, for all the member governments? That
Yes. Actually, you mean the project mapping is in what projects are where and when they're being...
dots on a map or something.
Yep,
and
I am
information.
currently working on, we just got a mapping system in place, or starting to, and my goal is to take the current fiscally constrained projects we have and link them to a map so that you can literally click on the project and it will pull up Google Maps or whatever, and you'll be able to comment about the project or have a public discussion. If we have a survey, it will actually be linked directly to the project. I would like to connect a lot of these things that are kind of missing dots that we have, so.
What about things like your traffic counts that you receive from, like CDOT? Or
Yeah, crashes and different kinds of things will also be included in our mapping system.
And that'll be a button
It
on
will.
this main page, or?
The goal is to integrate the mapping system throughout the website. So if it's a long-range transportation plan, whatever that map may be, whether it's a project or something, we will have that map directly on that page.
So let's say we're looking for 2016 counts.
Yes.
Where might that be?
So I'm going to chime in here because this is part of where. So if you were looking for just the crash information, that'd be under safety and security.
Okay.
If you were looking for car use, that'd probably be under regional transportation needs for current traffic counts. Our goal would be to try to make it simplistic and easy to find. So whatever the information is, within the plan page would be where you'd click and see the projects. Within the tip page would be where you see those projects and really map out and visualize so we can help make sure.
Yeah, that it's organized. Kevin, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say exactly what Jessica
Oh.
said. It's all going to be, all these different components to the different maps are going to be different layers. And my understanding is it's basically the same map, but they're different layers for whatever
Yes.
you're trying to do. Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
And also having in whether we call it library or resources or whatever, having that be searchable. That's kind of what I was thinking. We used that example of traffic counts yesterday. If it was me, I would go to PPACG, transportation, and then if you have a resources section, you can just type in traffic counts and it comes up. So I think the search function is really key.
Okay. Because I was saying, I probably wouldn't have looked for traffic counts in what you guys have said.
Right. But we'll make it searchable so that if you did want to look up specific traffic counts, you actually could go directly to the search button right here and type in traffic counts and it would come up. So.
Okay.
But we've also been talking about, because I might look for it someplace different than you would, so that's a big part of this whole beta testing is thinking about the way people's minds and mice work.
Yeah, so if you said something more like statistics and needs, then you might go look for traffic counts under statistics. Needs is a connotation of something future or something that you don't currently do.
Yep. And like, for instance, walk, bike, ride, in my mind, I envision something where all of our communities together, we would have a list of resources for things like maybe trail closures or maps that would link to different trails, that kind of thing, within that area. Because we don't have a connection right now of all of our communities for this website. So.
And your regional non-motorized study would be long-range plan?
Good question. Probably walk, bike, ride, yeah, since it's non-motorized.
It's also an appendix, though, to the plan, so it should.
That'll be in documents as well, yes. Correct.
I was going to say, I like the search tools. If everything's properly indexed, it works really great, but it's also overwhelming, I think, to some folks. And I like the convention that a lot of municipality websites and county websites are starting to use, and it's right up there with search. It's like a drop down. It says I'd like to, and it has a drop down of like your most common things. I'd like to search city, records. I'd like to contact my whatever, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think those are really helpful
Yep.
as well. It's feasible in this platform.
And actually, going forward, I will be doing analytics. We have some very limited analytics right now, but I've been gathering analytics throughout my time here so far, and that will be something that's actually very key in finding keywords and actually searches and how people are searching and what they're searching for, and that will drive the content for the future. So, good point.
Well, I see one thing that we'll have to do, and that's to get a TAC picture to go on the website.
Yes, correct.
We need to do
Because
that.
we only have the TAC right now. So.
With you two in the front
Yes. So.
Jenny had one other
Picture's
question.
enough for that, Brian.
What's that?
Yeah, I vote for a picture of our chair for that.
There's no I in team. Is there a way to send us a link? Do you want us to look through this a little bit more, or do you?
Yes. I can actually get with Jessica, and we can send you guys the link for the website.
All right, and then give us a timeline when you would like comments by.
Yeah, and I'll actually put some points for you guys to comment on, so you don't have to send an email back. You can just comment directly on the website. Make it easy for you.
Our goal is to present this new website to the board on February 8th. We would really like it to go live on that day. So your deadline will be before that.
Great.
Okay.
All right.
So you're gonna send us that link today, right?
Today? Yeah, we can.
Today? Tomorrow?
Today, I guess.
Soon.
Sooner rather than later.
Today or tomorrow, yeah.
Transportation people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Great job. Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, item number 10, note policy. This is a discussion item. Kevin?
Good afternoon, everyone. Kevin Reyes again, Transportation Planner here. So last month I brought the NOPE policy to the Board of Directors as a recommendation item. I presented the recommendation that was made by TAC and also by the CAC and PPACG staff. Just to refresh everyone's memory, the TAC recommended that we eliminate the existing NOPE policy and adopt CDOT's advanced management construction policy, as well as allow project sponsors to rescope a project to free funds up. CAC and PPACG staff both recommended that we keep the existing NOPE policy to the Board of Directors, and the Board voted to table the item and bring it back to the TAC and CAC for further discussion. And so since that meeting, I have contacted a few MPOs in the country to see how they deal with cost overruns and their tips. And so I'll briefly run through that real quick. One thing I do want to bring up is we had a couple of members who requested to have a copy of the note policy because I guess it was hard to find. I think it might not be on a website, so I printed those off if you wanted one.
Yes.
If anyone else needs a copy. So this handout, again, it just explains what the note policy is. I'll double check our website. It might not be on there. I'll make sure that we have it on there so it's easier to find. But this will explain what the note policy is for those of you who might not be familiar. So again, since the board meeting, I contacted some MPOs and just to see kind of what they do. And I included that in attachment number 2 to your packet. And so I'll briefly go over what some of those policies were. The first one was from the Mid-Region Council of Governments, or Mr. COG, which is in New Mexico. They have a policy. They do a policy called Advanced Construction as well. It's a little different than what CDOT does. Their policy, they allow project sponsors to fully pay for a project up front, and it allows them to get the project done sooner than later. And then they get reimbursed with TIP funds in future years. So the idea of this policy is to allow a project sponsor to get the project done sooner, and it helps to take out some of the volatility that's associated with having the project done 5 or 6 years down the road. So that's what Mr. COG does. Dr. COG in Denver also has a similar policy as well, and they also do not allow any projects to receive additional funding for any cost overruns. They basically have their own version of the NOPE policy as well. And the reason they have that is because they use 100% of the funds that they are given from CDOT and from the feds, and so they don't have any extra room for cost overruns. When they do have additional funds, sometimes CDOT has additional funds at the end of the fiscal year, or when projects close out if they have extra funds, they do not use those funds to pay for cost overruns. They use those funds to pay for projects that were not fully funded to begin with. So they actually have a separate list of projects. They call it the waiting list. And so any projects that are on there, they receive the extra funds that Dr. COG has. So for example, they had a project, the US 36. They requested $20 million for this project originally, and they only received $19 million from Dr. COG. So this project was put on a waiting list. And then as soon as they had additional funds, they gave this project the extra $1 million to get it up to be fully funded. So that's what Dr. COG does with extra funds. The Wasatch Front Regional Council, this is the MPO in Salt Lake City, Utah. They have a unique policy. They try to avoid cost overruns to begin with, and what they do is the project sponsor, the MPO, FHWA, and the Utah Department of Transportation, they go to every single site where a potential TIP projects are going to take place, and the project sponsor presents exactly what they're going to be doing at those sites and how much they think it's going to cost, and basically the full scope of work. The idea of this is to have everyone there at the table. They're at the site, the project sponsor presents it, and the other organizations are able to see if their scope of work and their costs are in the right ballpark, and if they don't think so, then they're able to discuss it at that time. And they use that to help also with their scoring as well. One additional MPO that I had a chance to talk with a couple days ago, it's not included in your packet, was the PEMA Association of Governments. It's in Tucson, Arizona. They have a contingency fund set aside that they use for cost overruns, and they pay for any project that is 10% or under their if they're over up. They can be over budget by up to 10%, then they're eligible to receive this contingency fund. One thing that they noted, though, is this is a very unique situation because they received highway user revenue dollars, which basically do not expire. So they're able to carry these over into future years. And so they don't have to worry about not spending them all if they don't use the full contingency fund. And so that's very unique to this MPO. But they do use a contingency fund for any cost overruns. It's on a first-come, first-served basis. So these are some of the MPOs I've spoken with. I'm currently speaking with the North Front Range MPO and the Maricopa Association of Governments. So I will have those next month as well as I continue to talk with more MPOs. But hopefully this gives you kind of an idea of what other MPOs are doing to see what we want to do. And going back to attachment number 1, this list here is all the alternative policies that I've come up with, speaking with MPOs and just internal brainstorming with staff. This is the same list we talked about a couple months ago. I did add one additional potential policy, which is number 6, which is adopt the cash management advanced construction policy, which is used by other MPOs, in which the project sponsor pays for a project upfront and is reimbursed with TIP funds in the future. Again, this is different than what CDOT does, which takes funds from future years and moves those funds forward. So there's 2 different types of advanced cash management policies that we can try to consider. And so whatever policy we ultimately decide on, if we do end up deciding on eliminating the note policy, we just have to make sure that we answer some fundamental questions to make sure it's an equitable policy for all the members. And so that is attachment number 3. So these are the questions we want to make sure that we answer before we move forward. The first is, 1, can a sponsor come forward for funding? Should the project be a certain percentage/amount over budget to qualify, or can the sponsor come forward any time? Should there be a schedule for asking for additional funds, or should funds be allocated on a first-come, first-served basis? Should projects requesting additional funds go through another competitive process? If so, what criteria will be used to rescore projects? Where should the funding come from? Should we create a set-aside contingency fund from a program project? If so, how? The next lowest scoring project, the same entity. If funding comes from the same entity, what if there isn't enough funding? And if a project is rescoped that impacts the project's original score, how should this be addressed? So these are the questions that we want to make sure we answer before we take this back to the board. So with that, I'll open it back up for further discussion on what I just presented.
Thanks, Kevin. I just wanted to start off by saying thank you very much for providing all of this. I mean, there was a lot of work that went into this, and for us to be able to make a good recommendation and something that's good for everybody, it's nice to see what's going to be or what's happening in other areas, and so I appreciate that. Thank you all to staff for doing this, and the questions on the 3rd attachment. These are all very valid questions to ask, and how is it fair for everybody? So thanks for outlining this. And I'd also like to say, I mean, this is going to be a discussion item for several months, I imagine, because you're still doing some more research on other COGs, and so I guess I just want to make sure that we capture all of the discussion really well. So if we could, through the video or just some really good note taking, just make sure that we capture all of what's said here today. That would be great.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Victoria?
We were going to have, or PPACG was going to have a conversation at the statewide MPO meeting. How did that go?
Well, that conversation was largely dependent on, and actually sort of driven by Craig Casper. So part of, I took that back after the November meeting. Was it November meeting? Mm-hmm. I talked to OFMB staff and others and told them that, this conversation was coming up. We wanted to talk about it again. Let's get ready to have a good, well-supported conversation. But really what I got back was, CDOT's cash management practices are really broad. It's not just an obvious, simple practice. And there's a lot to it. So the question was more, what do they mean by they would like to exercise CDOT's cash management practices? And I frankly couldn't explain it well enough on my own to really give it right and be ready. So we thought it made better sense to have Craig come to the statewide MPO and talk about it in detail. Then we could actually involve the other MPOs because they're also interested. But then you'd have some concrete examples. For instance, here's an example of a project situation, and this is what we want to be able to do, et cetera, that would, get the conversation going in the right direction. So we don't have that situation unless there's somebody from this committee who would like to do the same thing STAC and statewide MPO are next Friday.
No, tomorrow. Oh, next Friday. You're
It's
right.
next Friday.
Yes, next
Oh, thank God. Wendy.
Sorry.
Like, what? Yeah, so if somebody else wants to come do that same thing, that's great. I think that was going to be where we had this conversation. But there's, we can talk about details here too, because a lot of questions were raised at CDOT as well. So we can talk about that here today. And if somebody wants to come to statewide MPO and represent the TAC next week, that'd be great, because it is on the agenda. I don't know whether or not to keep it there. You'll have to kind of tell me that. So thoughts on that?
I also have a question I'd like to ask. Based on all the work that we just did to adopt the new TIP and to get everything in place that we did early in the fiscal year, July, August timeframe, all your projects are now aligned in the years that they need to be for the most part. The only one that still has any issue at all is Falcon Park and Ride. And that is not a local issue, that is a CDOT issue, because someone in the region made a huge error, and it wasn't me. So I have fixed it. I have people in the right places on board with making sure that the things that need to happen for that project will happen in the timely manner that it needs to happen in. But other than that, I don't see any need for us to have the conversation about having money in various years to be able to make a project whole in the first year, because we've taken care of that process, and we can continue to make sure that those type of issues don't come up. As you make your call for projects, you ask for projects to be done the way we're doing them now, which is the cash management process, that you budget for your design and your environmental and your right-of-way phases, and then you ask for money in the subsequent years for your construction or whatever other phases you need to go down the road with. So you could have design in one year, you could have right-of-way purchased in another year, you could have, so you can lay this out. But what that means to all of you is that you have to do the work up front, similar to what Kevin was talking about with Utah. Is that what Utah? That you have that ability to have that conversation. I have tried for years to get that type of conversation had here, but I've met so much resistance over the years with the different staff members. I even had one staff member tell me, "This is MPO money. Who do you think you are?" It's like, okay. So with that being said, there's so many things that we can do to make things better and work better for the local entities, and to move money that we need to move in the manner that it needs to be spent. Right now, because we have spent the last 3 years shuffling things around, you are behind in being able to spend the federal money on the schedule that the federal government and FHWA would like to see it spent. So with that being said, I went and pulled a report after this was brought to Michael and my attention, and all that work that we've done. One of the only projects that's moved forward is Victoria's. And I still have all this money sitting here. I have over $17 million that's still sitting here that isn't spent after we did all that work in July. So I don't know what to say. I can't. I don't know how to defend what we've done when it's not going anywhere. So I need to know if you need help from me to get my staff to figure out where things are going. I just need to know what it is that you need from us so that we can help you meet the goals that you need to meet, because if not, the money's in jeopardy of being lost.
IGAs.
Right. And not to disrupt the momentum that Wendy just left off, but to piggyback a little bit on what you said, and ultimately I would defer to FHWA as you're talking a good deal about FHWA projects. But with respect to Utah, for example, and other states such as Florida, they have decision-making tools which they also have as part of that process, so they don't just all go blindly out to every project without any information at all. They have very expensive and elaborate decision-making tools and modeling programs that they use as they go out and proceed with these projects.
And the other half of that with regard to, I believe, Puma that you were speaking to, I'm not sure if they fund that contingency entirely with local money, because I'm not aware of their practice. But I would caution you in regards to providing that kind of contingency with respect to federal funds, as it may be deemed unreasonable and unnecessary when you consider the fact that contingency should be part of a project estimate to begin with.
And when money does come back out of that contingency that isn't spent out of a project, when the project's closed, it comes back to the pool for you to be able to have access to it, to reassign it to another project. Or if you had a project with the shortfall, you could take that contingency when it comes back and assign it to that project if you had some process in place in which to do that. So there's lots of different ways to look at this. I just don't want us to paint ourselves in a corner that we can't be flexible and do what we need to do to get the money spent.
So I was going to just, as I mentioned, when I went back and talked to FMB folks about this, one of the questions they had was, about, what exactly does Pikes Peak want to exercise? What practices around cash management are you wanting to do? They pointed out that one of the most important practices CDOT does in cash management is just what Wendy's describing, which is working as hard as possible first to get the money spent in the year you actually programmed it. That's numero uno, before you actually talk about using future years' funds. And they drew up a list of figures, and they brought it to my desk, and frankly, it's a little bit mind-boggling, but what it demonstrated to me was that, and I can't understand it all, but what it showed me was, in particular, like SDP Metro's program down here, of the 2014 funds, only 53% has actually been expended. Of the 2015 funds, 30%, and of the 2016 funds, 9%. So they said, well, there's something not quite right there. Why would they feel the need to exercise future years funding? And that's where I said, okay, I think it's better we have this conversation with Pikes Peak. I just think it'd be better. But I wanted to point that out because I think there's some upfront opportunities that I think maybe this community should consider, and that is, figuring out how to do the best estimates of cost, figuring out those things that reduce your cost overruns in general. Like, to me, I imagine the longer you wait on a project, obviously, the more likely you are to have a cost overrun. So let's minimize that. Let's, any and all those things. It's multifaceted, and it needs to be, examined in a lot of different ways before you say, oh, I think we can fix it if we can just do what CDOT does with spending future years' funds. Aaron, I don't know what the perspective of Federal Highways is with that, or what you feel is the responsibility of MPO, or anything in terms of the utilization of funds. And
I didn't want to get dragged into this, but
you have to. That's why.
As far as my understanding is, there's no obligation for anybody to use all their funds. They're there. They don't have to be used, but they're wasted then. But yeah, I think this is a conversation between you guys. I don't know if there's much more regulatory stuff from Federal Highways that can really put this in better perspective.
The only thing I would say is just the fact that the funding does expire. It does have an expiration date on it, and if you don't spend it, and we still have it sitting here in a tip that we continue to roll forward every year, there will come a point in a time that the money's just going to disappear. It's going to be gone. And I don't want to see that happen. We have a lot of money sitting that hasn't been touched in years that continues to be rolled forward in projects.
I'll just add one final thing, is that I think that we need to continue to work with CDOT on, and I know this is not your issue, Wendy, the IGA process, because that is something that is really concerning to me. I mean, we have a couple bridge projects that we're ready to go, and we're just trying to amend an IGA, and we're ready to advertise and spend millions of dollars, and we just can't get there.
And I
it's not
realize
your
that.
fault. I know that there's other things, but I know that that was a priority for us to fix as far as the process, and I think doing that will let loose a lot of these funds.
And I'll tell you, our process, we keep reinventing that process. And it's gotten to the point that we actually have the right people in our organization listening to the problems. Our executive director finally has addressed that issue. So there is going to be change, and he is not the type of guy that sits back and says 6 months from now, oh, gee, we still haven't got that taken care of, or, oh, gee, that didn't work out the way we wanted it. He wants it done. He wants it done now. So I see that there will be some definite change coming to that process as things move forward. I'm kind of looking forward to see what he's going to accomplish, because during my whole career sitting here, I've never been able to get anything done.
This has been an issue for
Yes,
decades,
yes.
almost a decade.
Yeah, over a decade,
Actually, over a
actually.
decade, you're right.
So stay tuned for that. It is being worked on, and it's not going to be the same business as usual, that it's going to be another disaster when we're done with it. So, and we do recognize the fact that it has really slowed the local agency process down. Honestly, we do.
I want to make a recommendation on this. I think that this issue needs to be looked at in depth. I think it needs to be looked at by the right eyes, and maybe not in this forum. So I'd like to recommend a subcommittee to further this discussion.
I think it's a really good idea.
So can I ask that PPACG staff send an email to everybody and ask all member entities to submit a person to sit on the subcommittee, CDOT, and a PPACG staff person as well? And let's just dive. We can't figure this out in this meeting. Let's dive into it.
For which purpose now? I think we've touched on 2 or 3.
For the note policy issue, cash flow, that thing. The local agency agreements is going to be a different issue.
Yeah.
And not one that, but I think this note policy should be discussed, small group, look at it.
Okay, because much of what Michael was talking about is our project delay policy, that if a project doesn't move forward, it gets reviewed here and gets reviewed by the board, and if you're not moving the project, then thank you very much, we'll put the money somewhere else.
That's also tip management policy, right?
So
Okay, well, that sounds like a
that's
different
unrelated.
item than what we're doing here.
Yeah, that's
It is, but it's kind of all related. I mean,
Well,
the
maybe
topics
what
are
the
coming out, so I didn't know.
Please.
Sorry.
Maybe what the subcommittee can do is look at, just generally the tip policy in general, and the note policy is one of those items, and see if they can come out with some recommendations.
And I think part of the delay that we've had with the last couple of years is finally behind us, honestly. I do think that. And with this plan that we have in place, we just need to get the projects obligated now to be able to get things moving. And whether that's an IGA process or a staffing process from CDOT that's not being followed up on, or maybe something's happened within the local, I just need to know, if you need help from me, please outreach to me and I'll make it happen. I will make sure that somebody gets with you, that it gets taken care of, and that it gets done.
We still do have one project issue where we have funds split between 4 years. So that's one still that we need to figure out, because otherwise I'm going to be rolling those dollars forward till the second half.
And there
of the
very well
budget
could
comes
be
in.
a conversation. I'm not saying that our cash management policy is not something that could be done so that we can use that 4-year window. If we are doing it on a case-by-case basis, not something that we're trying to backfill a hole. We have done this. We have done this on a case-by-case basis in the past, and I'm sure that we can make that process work to do that. But I just don't know that they're going to open it up for all the MPOs to do that, because what happens now, and I'll give you an example. So with the continuing resolution, instead of having a whole 6-year bill, or if you have some shortfall in the government, we had issues with the budget in the government at the federal level. So they only allow us so much spending authority over a short period of time. So if everybody is trying to get a project obligated at the same time, we run out of spending authority. So not out of money, there's still money in the checkbook in the bank, you just can't spend it because there's no way for the government, the FHWA and the federal government to process the process completely so that you can spend the money. There's an issue right now with FTA money that I was made aware of that I need to make sure that I leave a copy of that memo with you and make sure Brian gets one to take with him so that you know what's going on with that. But that's the issue. So we've run into this ourselves where we've had to go back and de-budget money out of projects, large projects, when we first started RAMP, because we ran out of spending authority. So if we don't manage the spending authority, then we don't have a way to get you the money to build the project for you to be able to go to add. And so that's one of the reasons why we can't just use cash management on a whole global basis. And I'm sure that there would be no issue with the case-by-case basis, for instance, with this project in particular, to get it done. We just can't do it globally. With all the MPOs. I'm not talking just PPACG, I'm talking statewide.
Right. Just so we're on the same page, so with this subcommittee, who exactly would we want at the table for that?
I think we have to ask all our member entities if they'd like to participate.
Okay, so the TAC and the CAC and CDOT and FHW?
Not CAC.
Okay.
Because they don't do projects, so they're not going to get it. We'll work with them afterwards. But TAC members, and then we need to have a CDOT person and a PPACG staff person on it.
Okay, thanks.
So it's a TAC subcommittee.
It's basically everybody at this table.
It might be, but if a particular small entity doesn't want to join, Jennifer and I both don't have to be there. You and your counterpart don't both have to be there, but
Yeah, we do.
She's kicking me out.
Yeah, let's.
do you want to have it in this forum, or would you rather have where we can sit, look at things, have a computer, be able to get on the website, all of that stuff?
Let's. Let me just say this before I forget, Ken, if you don't mind. And it's kind of in response to what Victoria's saying. I mean, the reason why we're looking at this again is because we had a different recommendation than the CAC and the board. They like to see unanimous recommendations from the committees, and so they threw it back to us to decide. So I'm wondering if really this should be more of a joint process, as much as it could make it more complicated and muddier. If the board's ever going to approve something, I'm thinking that there needs to be a little bit of coordination between the committees and a larger group of people than just a few TAC members.
So you're referring to the
also-
CAC more specifically?
Well, that's just I'm just throwing that out there. That
Okay.
if the board is going to, they have a hard time making decisions when there are not unanimous recommendations from both committees. So we could just end up kicking this down the road month after month and not get anywhere. And I'm wondering if there's some administrative things with subcommittees. I mean, can we just call this a task force or a working group that forms to work on this issue, and once it's solved, it just dissolves rather than a subcommittee? And I mean, that's a question for you guys, but.
I'll answer that as soon as you're done, Brian.
Okay, and I'll just keep going. So I'm just cautious, and I don't want to keep dealing with this month after month. I want it to be resolved. I would like everybody to be comfortable with what goes forward. And the other question that comes to mind is, in a couple months, we could have a new set of goals, which could lead to a new set of evaluation criteria to evaluate and score projects on. Is it likely that there could not be any evaluation criteria that deal with, cost benefit or whatever? Because it seems like, the note policy is hinged on project entities gaming the system by, under costing their project and then coming back later and asking for money. So if there are not any criteria that deal with benefit cost or things like that, I mean, this note policy could be not even an issue.
But has that ever actually happened? Because I can't recall where anybody's gamed the system.
No, I agree. No, I know.
If
Yeah.
it was passed in 2006, it was certainly before my time.
I've been
That-
here for
that
quite a
the
while,
issue, had
and I hadn't seen it.
There was gaming of the system, and I think that that's gone, which is why my argument to get rid of the note policy. And I guess our bylaws, if you look at them, allow for a subcommittee. And I agree with you. I don't want to belabor this too much longer, but I guess I would, if I remember correctly, at the board, the reason why they threw this back to us is because they didn't have enough information to make a decision. They felt like they didn't have enough information. They didn't have what the current note policy was. They didn't have all the information that they felt like they needed to make this. So I'm not sure it was really a case of CAC versus TAC and having different recommendations. I'm certainly that was part of it, but I think part of it is because they felt like they didn't have a lot of information. And I'm sorry because I have to leave early, but I would support a subcommittee. Because then it could be worked out at the subcommittee of whoever wants to attend, and then come back to the TAC with a recommendation.
Yeah, I agree. Some type of group looking at this. And I would also like to add, since CDOT's cash management is part of that solution, potential solution or equation, that somebody from CDOT who can really guide us and give us some really good information to make a good decision, be part of that working group.
So sometimes the board sends back issues or items because they don't agree with it and they don't want to address it. Is this something where truly they're like, okay, we don't want to deal with this, or is this something where you truly go back and look and?
There was a board member who specifically asked to have the note policy, and because they didn't have that note policy in front of them, they
Gotcha.
didn't feel like they could even make a decision.
Okay, so it was.
Trustee Stevens, he said, before we go any further, let's see what the note policy really is. Let's see what other regions are doing, and and what are the alternatives. I mean, if we kill this thing.
So there's a true desire to go forward, not okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I've seen council do that before.
A couple of issues. I would ask that we not call it a subcommittee, that will take board approval. Also then is minutes and staffing and everything else. If we just call it a work group, a task force, then it can be organized however you would like to do it as the chair. I also would ask, as compared to meeting here, who's going to come to the task group other than the people that are already sitting here? Are there different people on staffs? Many of the entities here don't have alternate staffs, so it'll be the same people, so it'll be another meeting. As far as the cost benefit, the whole emphasis at the federal level is really going to that level. The new county commissioner that came over for a briefing, he'll be the new board member, Stan Vanderwerf or something like that. That is one of his emphasis areas, is cost effectiveness for all transportation projects. So I don't see that will go away. But, yeah, we're coming up with some new goals. We've got some new priorities coming up. 2 new county commissioners that'll be on our board, 6 members of city council up for re-election, whatever impact that is on the board. A lot of things are all interrelated. Everything's up in the air. And the basic question is what we started with, that if all of a sudden we're going to fund cost overruns with federal dollars, where are we going to get them? And that we haven't defined yet, and I think we would have to do that, whatever the process is, whether we're canceling a future project to do a current one, or whether we're not calling for projects, we're going to take a future year and all that money goes. Either way, we're going to lose projects. We just have to admit it, there's not enough money to go around. But so how do we address that with the least amount of hurt?
Well, for the record, I don't care what you call it.
Question about upcoming statewide MPO, and this is on the agenda to talk about cash management practices and, wishes and thoughts of the MPOs. One of you feel like attending so that we can actually have that conversation? We may get some, valuable information from that. It's next Friday, the 27th.
At what time?
1 o'clock.
I don't know, not having access to what Craig had in mind either, I don't know that I'd be prepared to present anything meaningful to the group at this point. I mean, we really haven't drawn any conclusions here.
Yeah. And the point to the conversation was, let's just help us understand what cash management practices are you wanting to exercise, and come with an example. And I assume that example would have been what kind of drove this topic back in the November meeting anyway. So,
How often do those meetings occur?
they're typically after every stack meeting.
I would say just postpone it for now, and let the task force talk about it. Maybe there's a different option. Maybe they
Yeah.
can look through and evaluate all of the different options, and maybe they'll decide something else is more appropriate. So I would push it at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I personally am unsure of this as a real solution, mostly because I just don't understand it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's
I think
complex.
asking one of us to attend without really knowing the ins and outs of that is kind of a waste of effort. And I think, if this working group can get into these issues and we have some really good guidance on what that actually is from CDOT staff.
We can
that
actually
would
have
help us.
someone educate you on what it is that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I actually think that's what that conversation needs to be more than anything, because there's an idea of what cash management is, and then there's the reality. And, I think that's a conversation that has to be had. And really, if they hand it to this committee to actually be driving issues that are getting up to becoming statewide conversation, because other MPOs that are kind of asking the same question, but also coming from a lack of full understanding for what that means. What is cash management? So the fact that we've brought it, or you're pushing that conversation, is really helpful, I think, to the whole state. So this is good, good exercise for everyone, and I hope you want to participate, and when you kind of get some general direction of things figured out down here, be willing to come have that as a state conversation, because OFMB wants to be able to talk to all MPOs so that we all understand what do we mean by cash management and what are the challenges and related issues, like overruns and so forth. So,
just something so I can take the next step moving forward with this working group. I'm still unclear if we want to have the CAC involved, and the reason I ask is because it seems like it would be beneficial, especially because they made an alternative suggestion to the board about what we should do. And I'm not sure how the board would perceive it if we created a group without them involved, or at least without them knowing. So I just want to see what you guys think about who we should have at the table so I can start putting this together.
Well, I think it is important to have somebody or a couple members from the CAC to be part of this just for that reason. But I also don't want it to be for us to spend a couple months just trying to bring them up to speed on a lot of what we already do and know. And so, I don't know.
Would it
There
be
has to be some
possible
type
to
of balance.
put that group together and formulate what we think is a solution, and then meet with the CAC and then hash it out? Because you're right, if we put them in the middle of this mess, you're just going to spend most of the time explaining why we do what we do, as opposed to saying, here's what we think a better solution is, come in, give us your opinions, and let's see if we can make this work.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I like that. I'd be willing to, just keep it within this group.
Okay.
And then, go from
And
there.
we'll just coordinate with them.
Yeah, that could work. If you have concern about whether or not it looks to be disrespectful to CAC, if they don't, if you're worried about how they might see this, that they're not included, you can always, maybe just talk to the chair and explain to them why it's really not a productive conversation if it's just open to everybody. But then having the chair there, perhaps, or maybe the chair can say, there's one committee member who I know is into this and gets their head around the topic already a little bit. You have a good connection, so it's going to make it easier for this task force to be able to figure out how do we communicate the actual background of the issue to the CAC so that they can actually discuss it, right? Mm-hmm. So that's another option.
Yeah.
Doesn't complicate the size of your committee then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You and I already talked about getting together and talking about, and planning some things for the year and about the committee. Maybe this is something we could just add on our agenda and take the ideas mentioned here and work out some details and come back next month.
Sounds good.
Or you can make the call as the chair, as long as we don't make it a formal subcommittee that's going to require board approval.
All right, say that again. Sorry.
Well, you and I can take the comments here and hash out some of the details and then come back here and see if everybody's comfortable with that, or you make as the chair, you're going to make the call.
Oh, yeah. No, I think we should move forward with a task force or working group and work it that way. I think that would be the most productive way to get everybody's thoughts and get some good expertise on what our options are. So, yeah, I think I'd like to go that route.
Okay.
I have another question. So, I may be remembering incorrectly, but when we talked about going and talking to the other MPOs, I think we were just trying to see what they were doing, and then somehow this ended up with Craig presenting what we wanted to do. So we have what Dr. Cog does with cost overruns. Is there a possibility to get what the other MPOs do for their cost overruns? Do we have that information?
Well, the topic actually wasn't about how do they manage cost overruns. The topic was just specifically CDOT's cash management practices, and can we talk about whether or not MPOs can exercise those practices as well. And because those are far and wide, much more, much broader than just the management of cost overruns. That was the topic. I mean, that was what the TAC had said. Wait a minute. I think maybe we get rid of NOPE, but if we can exercise cash management, we have a solution. So it was, just one part of it was to say let's talk about cash management.
So do we know what the other ones, other than Dr. Cog, do in this state yet, or have you not made it that far yet, Kevin?
I'm currently been emailing back and forth with the North Front Range MPO, and I haven't quite figured out what they do, but it sounds like they don't generally fund cost overruns, and if they do have them, then they more or less just kind of do it on a first-come, first-served basis as they get additional funds from CDOT. But I'm hoping to get a phone call with them within the next couple of days, just to see exactly what they do. So I'll have a better answer for you.
That correctly, or was really the plan for Craig to go up there and present our idea and get feedback? Because I can't remember.
I thought it was to kind of explain what's going on here and to find out more about the cash management option. I didn't think he was going to be presenting
No, I didn't
our.
Well, just to be clear, it was OFMB's response was, what do they mean by by CDOT's cash management? Because it's a whole lot of different exercises that are encompassed in cash management. So they're like, what exactly do you need? So I had email discussions with Craig after that TAC meeting, and said, Craig, it would be helpful, OFMB would like to understand a little bit better what you mean by it, and it might be helpful if you could explain it, and maybe explain it with a as an example, like a project example or something that would illustrate what exactly you want to do in terms of cash management. That's all it was to being a presentation. It was, not like, hey, Craig, put together some slideshows and present a case kind of thing. It was just help us understand what you're looking for, and then we'd be able to have a conversation about, what, I don't know, I guess for OFMB to understand, and then they can answer yes or no. We can let you exercise this practice or not practice. They couldn't do it because they didn't know what we meant.
Okay.
Would it be possible to have CDOT make a presentation on cash management next month?
Oh, I think for this task force, I absolutely think that it'd be most valuable to have an OFMB representative to participate. I think that would help up front, because then you can iron out a lot of things, and then as we start to figure out solutions, and some type of a presentation on some concepts is helpful to the whole committee. I'm sure they'd be willing to. They're very willing. They just didn't know what they could present right now. So
I think there was an initial presentation of cash management to the board, some time ago, and it
2
was
years
just
ago.
at the very beginning. There's been changes in personnel here. I know there's been changes at personnel at the board, so as this moves forward, there's going to be a re-education. So,
yeah.
And certainly now, with a couple of years under the belt, CDOT has some different perspectives. So I don't know whether you would prefer to talk to the statewide MPO and only have to talk once, or whether you'd be willing to have somebody come down and talk to us here. But
I think it'd be most helpful for them to come down here.
If I could, I'd ask for that for
that's
next month.
a good idea.
Yeah, for next month. Okay, so this would be before you have the task force kind of.
Well, if everybody's
Should we
educated,
discuss this, or-
then whoever's on the.
That's a good question. I mean, do we want it for the entire TAC membership, or for the working group, or,
Hey,
I like the working group, because I think that's where we need the information, because that's where we're going to discuss, can we put Tim's idea into practice? And I think that's where we need it presented in a very informal, back and forth, are we even close kind of way.
Okay.
all right. Yeah, that sounds good. All right, so I guess before we move forward, we lost a couple members, but general head nods or consensus, does everybody feel comfortable with moving this on to a task force or a working group to come up with a solution? Any horizontal head shakes? Okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you. And if we could just make sure the minutes show that we're looking to really dive into this with a working group. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. All right. Item number 11, fiscal year 2017 at 2022 TIP administrative change, number 2. Kevin?
Yeah, so last month we received administrative change number 2. Comes in 2 different parts. The first part is from Mountain Metro Transit. They're requesting to roll forward some funds for Project 16-301, the fixed vehicle replacement, and also Project 16-302, the van pool replacement. And the second part of administrative change comes from El Paso County, and they have requested to put the Judge Orr concrete box culvert project into the TIP. The reason that this particular project qualifies as an administrative amendment is because it's using federal emergency relief funds, which qualify as administrative changes. So both of these projects are already on the TIP, and it's updated online. And yeah, that's basically this TIP. One thing I wanted to add, for future administrative changes, we've had some internal staff discussions, and we want to get to see what you all think about it. But instead of presenting them at the meetings, just send an email to everybody and let you know it's been changed. since they are information items, I would save an item on the agenda for future meetings.
I like it.
Okay.
That sounds good. Yeah.
Alrighty. That's all I have. Are there any questions on this administrative change?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to add something to this, but we also just last week sent in another administrative change, adding some overmatch, some local dollars to these two projects that just went through this administrative change. So I apologize for the repetition and.
Yeah, so I didn't mention that, but that is technically administrative change number 3, which is it's already online, and I will send an email with that today. But I didn't want to confuse everyone with that. So, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All right.
thank
Thanks,
you.
Kevin. Okay, item number 12, priority project list. Ken.
Well, this wasn't on your original agenda that you got because I wasn't at the last meeting and didn't know about it. So thanks to Jennifer for pointing it out to me. I don't know what the discussion was or why you wanted it on the agenda today. So what I did just before the meeting, you should have all have the big handout in front of you. This is kind of the history in the last 15 or so months, 16 months of priority projects in our region. So starting with the small document, the October 15 memo. This was to TAC back in October 2015. And what you see in the highlighted on the first page there was the bulleted priority project list that the board had approved. At the October meeting, the attached projects, the big spreadsheet, was approved by the board in November. That's the second document that you have has the big 11 by 17 page with it. So the October document there gives you, prior to November, what was the priority list. The second document, November 13, 2015, memo to the board. Although, this is the approved, this is what, it's 2 pages, look on the backside. So this is what the board approved. This is our current project or prioritized project list. The third document with the 11 by 17 spreadsheet on it, dated September 14, 2016. CDOT came to us, if you remember, and asked for the recommendation from the board on the CDOT priority list. And so the board did approve this attached spreadsheet. And if you notice somewhere down there, there was I-25. There were a lot of, this was about 2 or 3 months that it took to get through because there were a lot of discussions from TAC members as well as board members as to how we split money, $50 million between US 24 West and I-25 North up in the gap. Should it be all in one direction? Should it be split? We made a recommendation, and I think CDOT decided on something else. So there was about a 3-month history there, but this is what was approved. The only other priority list then is last month, the board approved I-25 gap monument to Castle Rock as the #1 priority for our region. That's the history for the last 18 months or so of priority projects. I don't know what you wanted to discuss, so I'm going to turn it back over to you since you guys were talking about it.
Okay. The list that you gave them says Region 5 on it. Is that the correct list?
That's the list that went to
Okay.
our
Just want
board.
to make sure.
That's from a board memo.
Wendy, This list is not right. Because this is Region 5's list, and we're Region 2.
You don't want to talk
We
about
have a
Gunnison
region-
Valley and San
Yeah,
Luis
I don't
Valley?
really care.
We don't have any projects in
Yeah,
there.
I was looking for, like, where's our project?
I will go back and look. I don't know why that would have gone to the board.
Do you
This-
happen
this-
to have a Region 2 one with you?
This came out of the board folder, so I don't know why. I will look and,
All I can tell you is we've toted those things around for so long.
They all look the same.
I will look and email you if I can find the Region 2. But again, this was a CDOT priority list. This is not PPACG priority list. Our list is dated November 15.
I appreciate you putting all these lists together. I was looking for something like that in our packet, but I think generally what we want to do is take a look at all of our big projects, both local projects as well as the CDOT projects, and come up with sort of our high priority list of things that within our region we'd really like to see being moved forward. So that when we have these ballot initiatives and money drops out of the sky and all of that, we've got a clear set of, a subset of all of these lists.
Well, if you go back to, I think, the October or the September TAC,
So it's not.
yeah, the October 2015, there's some key questions that were raised during the discussion with TAC, and I'm sure CAC at the time, as to how we determined why is a priority project a priority project. So that would be some of the things that we would want to, I guess, to continue forward. Similarly, in the November 13, 2015 memo to the board, there were some questions that had been discussed. Even though it's Region 5, you can see what CDOT was looking at in terms of funding need. What type of facility is it on? Is it a TPR or a region priority? Addressed statewide plan goal areas of maintain the system, mobility, safety, economic vitality. Is it on an NHS corridor, freight corridor, that type of thing? So those, I guess, would be the type of things that we would want to discuss. We had projects that were both in the 2040 plan and not in the 2040 plan. And so if you look on the back side, there was some proposed priority projects that are not in the constrained portion of the 2040 plan. When the board made the motion to approve the fiscal list, they did give the priority to those that were in the fiscal constrained plan. And talking, again, related issues and kind of what you're talking about, Victoria. At the board meeting, our new Transportation Commissioner, Rocky Scott, spoke, and I'll just quote him here. He had been talking already. The important thing, I think, for all of us to focus on is, yes, the project has been accelerated. Karen Rowe had been talking about the I-25 PEL project. So, yes, the project has been accelerated, subject to, as Karen mentioned, funding. And I think everybody in this room is going to have a hand at the end of the day in helping to decide whether or not that funding is provided to CDOT to get the project done. So from his perspective, he was looking at all of the board members. We are going to have come up with some money for that project.
See, I interpreted that comment much differently.
Okay?
I think that we all have a hand in ensuring that A, federal highways, and B, CDOT knows that this is a very important project, and putting that political will behind this as our highest priority for the region.
Well, I would rather get the state to pay for it than for us to pay for it. So I would hope your interpretation's right.
Just another way of looking at it. Although I also will note on that project, President-elect Trump has put together a list of, I want to say, 50 top infrastructure projects. This I-25 GAP project is number 40. Yeah, pretty awesome. So it does help to have this unified regional voice to have these things heard, because that's what's going to make things happen in this region. And so our conversation needs to go, which of these projects do we want to have all of our voices supporting and behind? And I don't think at this meeting, given sort of where we are, I don't know that we're going to have that list. I know that Jennifer has a couple projects, I-25 Circle to Academy, 24 East widening from Garrett to Woodman. There's definitely projects on Platt and Powers that should be on our list. I'd like to see Charter Oak Ranch Road on our list because golly gee whiz, I cannot get DAR to give me some money for that. So I don't know if the best way to move this forward is to maybe ask all jurisdictions to submit some project ideas and, maybe why those are ones. What I don't want to do is go, okay, what are our selection criteria? And then we do some academic, sort of list of things that we've put a bunch of data. I mean, we know what these top projects are. Let's just get them out there. Let's take a look at it and get a list together to bring to this committee next month. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, but I disagree with you. When it gets back to, we go through a very exhaustive and mind-bending exercise to come up with prioritized projects. And then, as we've done in the past, we come up with a political priority list. And there is a disconnect between that list and what's in the plan. And I'd like not to see that.
I think we would all like not to see that, but I don't know that that's going to be a reality.
Well, and the question is the politics wrong, or is the planning process wrong that comes up with the wrong criteria, with the wrong selection, with the wrong data, that are coming up with the wrong projects? Then it's sort of an academic debate.
It's perspective.
That's a loaded question.
And it could be a little of both. Let's be real.
Well,
Well, here we are. 3 months ago, September 2016, we had a priority list, and you're suggesting another one?
We don't have one as of 3 months ago.
Well, it's a CDOT program of priority projects.
That's a CDOT list, a Region 5 CDOT list.
PPACG.
But our other one's a year old, right?
Ours is November 2015. That's the last.
We've gotten done or on their way.
Okay.
We've talked about coming up with this list since mid last year. I want to say since June of last year.
So this is our approved list with the board now taking action to saying that I-25 PEL is the number one priority.
Right.
So we have a number one. We just don't have anything else.
Yeah, is this list in order at all from
No.
2015? So we have a project, we have a list of projects, but we don't have an order for them.
Correct.
Okay.
I think
And
that's
we
the way
can
the board
still-
has always handled it.
Yeah, we can still do that as having, a number one project and then have 5, 8, 10 high priority projects for the region not listed in any particular order because we want to be able to utilize whatever color funding comes in at that time.
And I think then that it gets back to, if this is our priority list, however it was developed, then what does that mean with future funding that comes from reconciliation every year, some magical funding? Does the priority list beat out cost overruns?
It'll be a good conversation to have.
Well, and it
They're
would depend on
related.
how much and what color that money is. We'll have to have that conversation as to which priority project it goes on, depending on the color and the size of the money. If it's $500,000, you might want to use it for cost overruns. If it's $100 million, then we'll probably want to widen I-25. So it sort of depends, and I don't know that it makes sense to decide what that order is right now. We just need to have, again, the regional unified voice of these are our highest priority projects in our region.
And do we want to do that right now or after we have the city election? And I don't know how many of the small communities are having elections in April, where we may have a significant change in the board and with the strategic plan they're developing as to where we want to go and how does that impact our priorities.
Even if we start this conversation now and we start submitting some projects and we take a look at the reasons why those projects should be on our priority list and it goes through the committee process, it's going to be after April until it gets to the board. We need to start the conversation and start putting some things on paper. And like I said, I really do appreciate the fact that you brought these lists, because I seriously was looking for them today on the website, and of course, if you didn't know the date that they passed, you couldn't find them on the website, so thank you for doing that. So I think, again, that we put an email together, put it out to all the jurisdictions and the member entities that are on our list, and say, here's some information, send us back what you think our 5 or 10 top priority projects should be, and give us a bullet point as to why you think that. And then we'll compile all of those and bring them to our next meeting. So maybe at next meeting, we have a list of 20 projects that we start winnowing down, and we have that conversation then.
So if you get to looking for the development program, and you want to look for Region 2, you still won't find I-25 Monument, because it's a Region 1. But it is listed in there as both Greater Denver and Pikes Peak area as the, the TPR that it's within. So it's currently on the development program list. It is also in the 10-year development program list, which, as you know, is the current list of the current top $2 billion worth of the big list. So I don't know where it falls in the prioritization of that, because that process is still kind of being worked on
but at least
statewide.
for us, we already know that that's our number 1 project. We need
Yep.
to get 2 through 9 or 2 through 10 laid out. That's the piece we don't have.
Yep.
So if CDOT, if you could provide us the actual Region 2 list, and then we can take a look at these lists. You have the fiscally constrained list and, on the website. Let's put together some ideas for what our top priorities are. Y'all are looking at me like I'm wacko. This is nothing crazy, is it?
No, I agree.
My folks have been asking the same thing. They wanted to know if there was a list that's been talked about, or if there's any talk that's happening about the priority projects, especially now with the new administration coming in. So she's not off base. She's not.
Well, for those of us who knew,
At least Wendy doesn't think I'm crazy.
it'll be nice to know where Fountain sits on the list and what projects impact or don't impact it, and working together to get them done. Especially since sounds like we have a lot of money we need to spend.
And so just a couple questions for myself. How often is this updated, or does it follow a real cycle, or it just gets updated as?
It's updated as desired. I know for 1 year, we were doing it every 4 months because there were some elected officials that were going to CDOT on their own saying this is our priorities. And then CDOT would come back to us and say, want the board to reconfirm or change your priorities based on the conversations we've had with elected officials. So I think for a year, we did about every 4 months.
Okay, all right.
Usually it's done on a necessity, because
Sorry.
there's some looming amount of money coming, so it's done from necessity.
Okay, all right. And from what I can remember, these projects are not really evaluated. It's more of a submittal. Projects get submitted, they get discussed, and they get either prioritized or bulleted, right? And then, the board kind of
You would then need to go
gives
through
us
the
that
whole
guidance.
committee process.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily come from the fiscally constrained list either.
Because again, if new money falls out, it would be a project that we say, hey, it didn't make the list, but it's really important, let's put it in the fiscally constrained list, because now we have money for it.
Airport power is a perfect example.
Yeah. Well, and that's the way the current list is, right? We have 1.5 pages of fiscally constrained project list projects, and then
Right.
unconstrained.
And the board did recognize and approve that second list on there for projects not in the plan, but it said the ones in the plan had the priority.
And that could be changed by whoever's sitting at the table that day, as we well know.
All right, so where are we? What direction are we headed?
I would propose an email go out to all the member entities with these 3 lists, with the actual CDOT list,
Region 2.
and ask all member entities to submit, let's go with, do you want to start with 10? Or do you want to make them winnow down further to 5? I'm thinking 10.
I like 10 because then if some overlap,
And then we winnow it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say-
So have them submit what they think
Up to-
10 priorities
up to
are.
10.
Up to 10. Yeah, if you don't have it 10, then up to 10. And a bullet point as to why you think that's a priority project. That'll give us something to discuss at our next meeting.
Who are you
And-
sending it to?
Sorry?
TAC,
So you're sending the projects out to everybody?
in the TAC, yes. All our member entities.
Right, we are sending the email out to all of you, but who are you all submitting the projects to? Are-
Somebody back at PPACG,
That's
whoever
what
that
I'm
person
looking
is
for.
that you need to
Whoever
assign to
sends it
that.
to us.
I don't give out your staff assignments.
Would you like to do it, Jennifer?
I assume it's the person that sends the email, so you
Whoever sends
reply
you the-
to it, so.
We'll arm wrestle and see who sends you the email, and then all you got to do is hit reply.
You guys can figure out who the loser is on that one.
You got it. Well said.
All right, so then another process question. Once that list, all the entities send those lists or project lists into staff, that will come back to us to look at. And we're all going to be doing the cutting and development of it, and then it will go.
We can discuss
To the
and make your
board,
argument
yeah.
on why.
I'll get that out in the next, or well, somebody here will get that out in the next couple of days, and we'll have a deadline. We're going to start asking for all TAC packet items that need to go out, that we have it by noon on Monday before the mail out. We just don't have the time to get stuff put together and rearrange agenda items, so that's why your item was an action item on the bottom of the agenda, because that was easier than, in the time frame we had, than rearranging all the headers for the agenda and stuff. So we'll be doing that, so we'll send out and give you the deadline to get your list of 10 back to us.
But don't tell my staff that you're going to do that, because I make them go by the first Friday.
All right, first Friday.
Does the CAC get the same email?
Send them ours.
Yeah, I don't know. I would think this, I mean, this is something that should be born out of this committee, and we could have that discussion and see how the board would want that handled. I mean, I could see it being developed here, being
Vetted through the
presented,
CAC?
yeah, or shown.
So
to
we
the
develop
CAC.
the list, CAC vets it,
Yeah,
and then it goes to the board?
yeah.
the CAC could just give us feedback if we missed something glaring that they think is important, so then we have their input.
Well, they would give their argument why or why not.
Right.
Yeah. And it doesn't, we ask for their feedback. It doesn't have to be a joint project list. I mean, the board can hopefully make a decision based on what our list says and what the CAC says and the feedback they gave.
We could take it to comment, to them to comment on when we come up with our first list, our draft list. Take it to CAC, let them comment, bring it back here, vote on it, then send it back to TAC to vote on.
Prioritize our, and then send them that and say, you'd like.
Yeah, what do you
you'd like
think?
this- You'd like
Yeah.
this order, and if not, why?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so these will be projects that could be in the fiscally constrained project list or not, right?
Yes.
So, okay.
Because again, we have a fiscally constrained list based on the money that we have now. If there is new money found, we might want new projects.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Item 14, member entity announcements.
I just have a question. I get to use that new excuse as long as I possibly can.
You got 4 more months of it.
All right, I'll take it. So in the Unified Planning Work Program document, as the City of Fountain will not conduct transportation planning activities. So did someone tell you we're just not doing anything? Because these look like projects and not necessarily transportation planning activities. So what is the definition of a transportation planning activity?
I don't know what the strict definition is, but our UPWP must include all regional planning activities that are being conducted by the locals, even if they're not using federal funds.
Right, so I should
So-
have more than none.
Well, that was what was given to us
That's why I
at the
asked.
time. So
Okay.
because we do ask each of the entities to let us know what you're going to be doing in the coming year.
Okay.
So something may have been developed after
Right.
the document was approved.
Well, there's a lot of things that are in process. I just
Okay.
don't think they made it to this, so I guess whenever you do a new one, you'll just let me know and
Right, we'll be doing a new one
we can look
middle
like
of the
we
year,
actually
right?
do
Every
things.
year we do one.
Well,
Or we
yeah,
do
yeah,
some
Brian,
kind of an
Brian was
update.
asking that. I mean, you do, but it's only, they're still only by necessity. I mean, if you get to mid-year and there's nothing to amend, you don't do one. It's not mandatory, it's not like it's always done. You
Well, I guess-
you almost,
guess
you
not-
almost always do one in time to have it in place for October 1, because you're usually looking at New Year, and you get, you get updated numbers from us as to how much planning funds are actually going to come to you. So you always do one in preparation for the onset of, the October 1 fiscal year. But otherwise, you can amend when you want. That's up to you. If you're about to do one right now and you get a list to him right now, I don't see why you couldn't tack it in there if this, I mean, that's how it's happened anyway in the past. You get all the planning activities in there, and it's an email out to all the member entities. Please send us the stuff to include here that's, funded through other means. And it's not reviewed, it just gets added on. You can see it's sort of an appendix to
Send me
it.
what you got.
Okay.
You might as well, get it in now and.
Again, by mid-year, I was thinking it's a 2-year contract in the middle of the contract, but that's the beginning of the new fiscal
Right.
year.
Yeah, mid-year is March 31, so
Forget that.
don't do another one then. That's too soon.
All right, any other member entity announcements? All right, thank you. Items for future TAC meetings.
Priority list.
I think the note policy is coming back in one form or another, or a report on the task force, the priority project list. I'm sure we'll have a tip amendment.
You will, because we have the 18 to 21 projects to put in.
The goals are going to be out in the public.
We hope
review.
the board will release that, so that'll be out for 4 to 6 weeks. and
Projects that are
If we get any information, we can bring it back and let you know about it, but there shouldn't be any action at that point.
Sounds good. Any other comments before we adjourn?
Would you guys like to get a picture before we adjourn? No? Or
We lost
would you like to put it
everybody.
on? Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, maybe at the
Do it
start of
next time?
next month's meeting, sure.
Make sure to put it on.
We don't need a picture.
Comb my hair then.
See you.
I'll be late.
Thank
Just
you,
so you know, I'll
everyone.
be late next week.
Younger self in there.
So hi,
My
Cole.
high school graduation.
I'll make sure that your name gets added to our email list, and we'll get you all of this electronically, and then you'll have an email address or something to send me whatever planning activities you're
Okay.
doing that you'd like to see listed there.
Okay, yeah, I'll look at everyone else's and kind of make conformance. So, at some point in time, was I authorized by the board to sit here, or do you even know?
Brian said it was so
That
slow
happened.
I learned yesterday
said what?
that it's in process. It's not been done.
Okay, are
So
they waiting for anything in particular?
technically, you're not a voting member yet. But
Well, I haven't
obviously, we
forwarded anything yet, so.
run things informally here, and it hasn't been